In this video, we are going to do the same thing we did before with order of operations, but now we're going to be working with integers. In particular, we'll be working with negative integers or negative numbers, and so that actually makes it quite more challenging. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do these first problems on the left, and just again quickly go through the rules as we're dealing with the integers here. So let's go ahead and get started. So on the first one we have -3 plus -8. So we know when we add two numbers that have the same signs, we're going to ignore the signs, so we're going to add, and we're going to add the two numbers. So in this case we'll add 3 and 8, which is 11, and we use the sign of the two numbers. So that's the rule. Add the numbers, use the sign of the two numbers. On number 2 we have a negative times a positive. So 5 times 9 is 45, so this is going to be -45. On number 3, we have subtraction. So we're going to add the opposite, so this becomes 7 plus 9. So the minus sign becomes a plus, and the -9 becomes a positive 9. And so we're going to get 16 here. On number 4, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So here we're going to get 8. On number 5, we have opposite signs. So when we add numbers that have opposite signs, we're going to again ignore the negatives, and we're going to do 12 minus 7, which is 5, and we'll use a sign of the bigger number. That would be the 12, so it's -5. Remember to think in terms of debt. If you have $7 but you owe 12, then you're in the hole $5. So when you're adding integers, debt is a really good way to make sense out of that. Let's look at number 6. So when you divide a negative by a positive, you're going to get a negative. So this one's -9. Number 7, a negative times a negative is a positive. Hopefully you're starting to get your 12s down. This is going to be 72. On number 8, we have a subtraction problem. So we need to change this to adding the opposite. So again, subtraction problems we change to addition problems, and then we use our rules for addition. So this becomes -12 plus -9, and 9 and 12 is 21, so this will be -21. Again, we want to use the sign of the two numbers. Again, if you think in terms of debt, if you owe someone $12 and you owe someone else $9, then you owe a total of $21. Let's look at number 9. Here you're going to add the two numbers, and so we'll get 30. And again, we'll use the sign of the two numbers, so this is -30. And on number 10, you have a negative times a positive. Again, we have our 12s here. This is 36, so it's going to be -36, since we have opposite signs. Let's move over, or let's move to the next slide here, and we'll get to number 11. Alright, so here we have -6 minus -15. So let's add the opposite, so it becomes a plus +15. And so we have opposite signs, so we're going to subtract. We get 9. And we want to use the sign of the bigger number, that's the 15. So our answer is +9. On number 12, we have a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive. Number 13, again, we have an addition with opposites, so let's subtract the two numbers. We get 8, and use the sign of the two numbers. That's going to be -8. Number 14 is -54, negative times positive. Number 15, let's change this to adding the opposite, and so we're going to get -12 out of that one. Number 16, we have a positive times a negative, so we do get a negative number. Divided by a negative. Number 17, we're adding two negatives, so we're going to add 5 and 9. We get 14, and we'll use the sign of the two numbers. So our answer is -14. And the last one here, you have a negative times a negative, and we know that's positive, so you get +32. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and move into the order of operation problems, and we'll start with some of the more simple ones, and we'll work our way up. But I just would warn you to be really careful to follow the order of operations and be very careful with the signs. So let's move on to the next one here. So here we have negative, -8, or we could say this as the opposite of -8. And we know the opposite of -8 is +8. So that's one way to think about this. Another way is anytime you have a negative out front, you could put a 1 right behind it. And think of this as -1 times -8. And so you would get +8 in that case as well. So that's just a different way to think of it. Number 2, 0 divided by anything is 0. And we also we talked about how we can't divide by 0. In fact, it's undefined. So anytime you have 0 in the denominator of a fraction, hopefully a red light will go off in your brain and remind you that you can't do that. It's undefined. Alright, let's look at number 4. Let's go ahead and first change the subtraction to adding the opposite. So now we want to work from left to right. Although since it's all addition, it really doesn't matter the order. But -5 plus 9 is going to give us 4. And then we have that other 4. And so we're going to get 8. On number 5, you want to be careful here. You got a subtraction and you've got a multiplication, 3 times -6. So we always multiply before we subtract. So this becomes 20 minus -18. Notice it's 3 times -6, which is -18. We're subtracting a negative number here. So this becomes 20 plus 18, which is going to be 38. By the way, I would highly recommend that you try these and then watch the video solution. And if you keep doing that and you keep working at it, with time you'll get better at it. This is something that definitely takes practice. Some people find this very challenging. So hang in there. Number 6, we've got 2 subtractions and a multiplication. Again, let's go ahead and get rid of the subtraction on the second one there and add the opposite. And notice we have subtraction, multiplication, and addition. We're going to want to do the multiplication next, or first. So let's do that. This becomes 3 minus, remember we don't want to mess with the subtraction, that's going to come at the end. 2 times -3 is -6. So this becomes 3 minus -6. Now I know some people, after you've done this a few times, you realize you could think of it as -2 times -6, and so eventually we're going to get 3 plus 6. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. 3 plus 6, and then don't forget you still have the 5. So 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 and 5 is going to give you 14. Alright, let's look at the next one. So we always want to start inside parentheses. We have something we can simplify inside parentheses, so let's do that. We're going to get 3, and then that's going to be multiplied by -4, and so you get -12. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Now, on number 8, whenever you're working with a fraction, you basically will simplify the numerator, simplify the denominator, and then divide, or simplify the fraction. In fact, if you were to put this in your calculator and you did the whole thing in the calculator, it would look like this. Basically, the numerator in parentheses, brackets are just another way to write parentheses. It just helps it to stand out a little bit better, but it's just parentheses divided by your denominator. That's how you would put that in your calculator. Again, with those brackets, you're just choosing the parentheses. So, but normally what I like to do is just do simplify the numerator and simplify the denominator, and then if you can simplify the fraction, you'll do that. So here we're going to do the 7 minus 3 first because it's in parentheses. So this will be 5 times 4 in the numerator. In the denominator, let's write that as -8 plus -2. So we're changing our subtraction problem to an addition problem. So we're going to get 20 over -10, which reduces to -2. 20 divided by negative 10 is negative 2. Alright, on number 9, remember that multiplication is not a higher priority than division. They're considered equals, and we work from left to right with equals. So let's go ahead and take care of the division. That's going to be negative 12, and then that's going to be multiplied by negative 4. And so we get 48 there. On number 10, let's go ahead and add the opposite here. So this becomes negative 8 plus positive 6 plus 2 plus negative 7. So we'll go from left to right, negative 8 plus 6, and that's going to be negative 2 plus negative 7. Notice negative 2 and a positive 2 are going to add up to 0. So 0 plus negative 7, you're going to get negative 7. Alright, let's move on to the other worksheet, and we're going to get a lot more practice with order of operations. Now before we get into this, I want to point out a really important thing when you're working with exponents, particularly with things like the following. So if here this is read negative 3 squared, the key though is anytime you have an exponent, the number or letter that is next to the exponent is your base. In this case, your base is the 3. The only way to include the negative as part of your base would be to put parentheses around the whole negative 3. So in this problem, the base is just 3, not negative 3. And so if I were to write this out, it would look like this. I'm going to multiply 3 times 3, and then I'm going to apply the negative. You could even think of it as negative 1 times 3 squared. So we're going to get 9 when we square 3, and then we apply the negative, we get negative 9. So this is the one you've got to be careful with. It's going to be negative 9, not positive 9, because you're just squaring the 3 and then applying the negative. The other case that's very similar is this one here. Notice this time our base is everything inside the parentheses, which is negative 3. And so negative 3 is what we're squaring, or what we're multiplying by itself. And so a negative times a negative is a positive. So notice this is something we've got to be really careful about. These two expressions mean two different things. So let's go ahead and get started. On number 1, let's see, we've got multiplication. 3 next to parentheses means we're multiplying. And then we've got an exponent, and we know with the order of operations, we do the exponent first. So this is going to be 3 times 16, and we get 48. Now I want to remind you, with the order of operations, we always take care of parentheses first, or anything inside parentheses that can be simplified, that's what we do first. And then we take care of exponents, and then multiplication and division are done. And remember, those are done left to right. Multiplication is not the higher priority. These are equal in priority, and we do the one on the left first. And the same is true with addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and do the next problem here. So here our base is negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3, you're going to get 9. And then we're going to do the multiplication there next. So this is 9 minus, now be careful here, you're subtracting 4 times negative 2. So it's positive 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. We're subtracting negative 8. So this becomes 9 plus 8. Now again, keep in mind, you could think of this here as negative 4 times negative 2 and go right to positive 8. So whatever works easiest for you, but you're going to get 9 plus 8. So that's going to be 17. Now again, on number 3, we've got to be careful with that little thing with squaring that we talked about before. In number 3, our base is just the 5. And so we're squaring 5, which is 25, and then we apply that negative, so our answer will be negative 25 plus 10, and that's going to be negative 15. On number 4, we've got to take care of what's inside the parentheses first. We're going to get 8 minus negative 2. So again, we're adding the opposite here, and we get 10. Let's move on to number 5. We've got work to do inside parentheses. So inside the parentheses, we have to follow the order of operations. Notice we have a subtraction and we have an exponent. So we'll take care of the exponent first. This is 5 minus 8. Be careful, that's not 6. It's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 you get 8. And so don't forget the 2 there. And 5 minus 8 is going to be negative 3. And then we want to square that. Remember, it's a negative times a negative, so we get 4 times 9, which is 36. Now again, I would encourage you to try each of these before watching the video, and then hopefully you will find that you did it right, but if not, you want to try to learn from the mistakes that you made so that you will not make those mistakes in the future. Alright, so here we got to simplify what's in the parentheses first. So 6 minus 4 is 2. Then we got an exponent to take care of next. So 2 minus 7 times 8. We've got to multiply next. This is 2 minus 56. And so you're going to get 2 plus negative 56, which is, let's see, we want to subtract the numbers and use the sign of the two numbers. We're going to get negative 54. Number 7, again, let's start inside the parentheses. So we're going to have 2 times 3 cubed minus negative 2 squared. So be careful, we want to apply the exponents next. So it'll be 2 times, now be careful, it's 3 times 3 times 3. You're going to get 27 there. And then subtraction, that's going to come last. Negative 2 squared, that's going to be a positive 4. It's negative 2 times negative 2. But we're subtracting it, so it's minus 4. So we'll multiply next. We get 54 minus 4, so we're going to get 50 there. Alright, we got 2 more to go. Actually, 3 more to go. Okay, so on this one here, we'll start with our exponents. So we'll get negative 9 there, minus, and negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And then we've got a multiplication. So we're going to have negative 9 minus 9 plus 8. So we're going to end up getting negative 18 there. Now you can write that as negative 9 plus negative 9, and then you'll get negative 18. And then we're going to add 8, and so we get negative 10. Alright, on number 9, our numerator is negative 12. Our denominator, let's write that using addition. So we're going to get negative 12 over 3, which is negative 4. And last one here, let's see, we need to do some work, and we have parentheses inside parentheses, so we want to start with the innermost parenthesis. So this becomes, let's see, 6 times 9 minus negative 1. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Again, you could write that as, let's see, 3 plus negative 4. That's where I'm getting that negative 1. And don't forget your squared. So this becomes 9 plus 1. So we're going to have 10 squared. Don't forget to use the, or to apply the exponent first. You're going to get 6 times 100, which is 600. And that will do it for this video.